Hi. Yeah. So another time reading more of this book. I'm getting close to the end. I'm at page 55, and there are 99 pages roughly. Anyways, Seed's mediation process. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Buddha. Seed's mediation process. Did I say meditation before? Anyways, interest-based communication and negotiation. Incorporation of substantive time and effort to have mediation participants communicate directly with each other in the process with the assistance of the mediators. Emphasis on mediation participants proposing and developing their own solutions, instead of the mediators suggesting or directing specific solutions or outcomes. Absence of the mediators evaluating the substantive content of the participants' positions and the relative strengths and weaknesses of the arguments supporting their position or point of view. Now that's absence of that. Minimizing the use of private caucus and separate conferences between mediators and parties so they can develop better communication and trust. Developing resolutions that integrate how participants will address and resolve further conflicts. We use this facilitative approach because we believe it provides the greatest opportunity to build capacity in our communities for people to learn how to resolve their own conflicts. This approach also fosters better communication and understanding between the parties, helps bridge differences, and honors ongoing relationships. We empower parties to be creative and find their own solutions, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who will be doing the hard work and reaping the fruits of their own resolution. Learning philosophy. In addition to practicing and teaching a facilitative approach to mediation, Seeds also integrates co-mediation, using 2 or 3 mediators in a team-based effort to provide the most of its mediation services in the community. We see this as an opportunity both to provide parties with a diverse and dynamic range of mediators. It is also an excellent way to create a learning community where mediators can share ideas and strategies, observe different styles, and provide quality feedback to help each other grow and thrive as a practitioner. When we teach conflict resolution and mediation skills, we firmly believe that the best way to learn is to experience it through practice. In the pages that follow, we will provide a general framework, some tips and suggestions, a few concrete tools we have found useful, and even sample language you can incorporate into your practice. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to develop a style and approach to mediation arc of this journey. Before the mediation session, party preparation, mediator preparation. During the mediation session, opening, speaking to the mediators, speaking to each other, problem solving, resolution statement, agreement, closing. After the mediation session, mediator debriefing, follow up with the parties. Steps during the mediation process: opening, speaking to the mediators, speaking to each other, generating solutions, resolution statement, agreement, closing. Before the mediation session, case development, party preparation. Objectives: what a case developer mediator should accomplish. Build trust by listening to each party's story. Assess appropriateness of case. Educate parties on mediation process roles, benefits, and possible outcomes. Get agreement to participate from each party. Determine stakeholders and logistics. Steps: what a case developer mediator can think about or do. Talk with all the parties separately and privately before initiating mediation process. Allow the parties you're talking with some time to tell their story uninterrupted. Listen for information from their story that will demonstrate the value and benefits of mediation. Explain the benefits of mediation as it relates to their situation. This could include cost savings, time savings, avoiding litigation, preservation of relationships, control over solutions and outcomes, and more. Explain mediation processes, confidentiality. Identify next steps. Include who should participate and how they were brought to the table. Discuss any concerns, constraints, logistics, and fees as appropriate, including special needs the parties might have. Affirm each party's willingness to participate in mediation. Give parties ideas and questions to consider in preparation for mediation. Tips. Technique, skill, or framework a case developer or mediator can use. Use EARS, which is empathy, asking questions, rephrasing, and summarizing. Possible open-ended questions that help parties to prepare for mediation session. How do you want things to be different? What do you think is needed to make those changes? What do you think is needed from you to make those changes? What do you think the other person needs? What can you do or say during the mediation that will help others understand your point of view? Considerations for assessing appropriateness. Timeline must be non-urgent. Parties. P2 must be another person, i.e. not an institution, unless there's a particular person with authority. Both parties must be able to come to the same location. Both parties must be willing. Consider any mental health or capacity issues one or both parties might face. Does anyone else, another stakeholder, need to be in the room? Case history. No violence or restraining orders. If the case is already in court, we might need a postponement. Likely outcome. Is there a possible resolution? Sometimes the available issues to negotiate are limited. For example, you can't change a policy but still want an apology or increased understanding. And there's a case study. I'm not sure I want to read it, but it's here and it talks about party information and case summaries. It'd be good to write out for my case. Case details. Okay, so I'll get to that later. But yeah, it's very interesting because there's like two sides to the story, and I like that. So we're gonna have to like step one, create a case summary. I hope to get through the end of this book in the next 10 minutes, but I don't know what the other pages are gonna look like. More case studies, which is good. Okay. Mediator preparation objectives. What a mediator should accomplish. Self-check-in and centering. Review process and logistics for the session. Review case information. Identify activators, biases, assumptions, and potential challenges. Review your own strengths and weaknesses as a mediator. Steps. 1. Review any case materials, notes, and summaries you may have for preparation with the parties. 2. Take time before the mediation session to reflect internally and share with co-mediators when appropriate. 3. Consider your own strengths and weaknesses as well as your style of mediation in the context of this situation. 4. Think about possible issues that may surface that will trigger you and reflect on how you might handle them. 5. If you are working with co-mediators or others, discuss roles, personal styles, teamwork, including how you will communicate in the mediation session. 6. Identify and provide what is needed to make the parties more comfortable for the mediation session, including seating arrangements, paper, pens, refreshments, restroom facilities, and appropriate space for private conference. Tips. Questions or statements you may ask yourself for a co-mediator in preparing for session. What am I really good at as a mediator? What skill or strategy do I want to improve or need to learn more about this process. What biases, assumptions, or activators might arise from me in this case? How will I handle this? What will be my style working with the parties? Styles and approaches to mediation. There's no right or wrong in these. There are advantages and disadvantages with any of them. You can add more as they occur to you. Quick, impatient wants action. Slow, deliberate needs time. Needs to plan ahead. Flexible, decide as you go. Likes structure, likes flexibility. Goes by the rules, likes freeform. Wants it logical, wants it to feel right. See facts as they are. See potential, future possibilities. Wants to know how people feel. Wants to know the facts. Comfortable with venting. Uncomfortable with venting. Uncomfortable with anger. Comfortable with anger. Used to verbal conflict. Needs verbal politeness. Bothered by abusive language. Can ignore verbal insults, abuse. Talking at the same time is okay. Feels people should take turns. Needs to talk if there's silence. Comfortable with silence. Flexible about time. Precise about time. Serious. Uses humor. Comfortable with complexity. Wants simplicity. Comfortable with confusion. Ambiguity. Wants clarity. I'm going to open this one out, and I want to circle the ones that I like, because I resonated with some of these descriptions, and it's very interesting. Reminding myself that I have these styles, Exercise, mediation, pre-briefing. It can be challenging to know what to say during the pre-briefing practice when you never had mediated before. Spend 5 minutes going through this guide to help you identify things to share with your co-mediator before the exercise. Nervous. Self-check-in. Nervous, excited, sleepy, alert, good day, bad day, focused, distracted. Review process and logistics for the session. Feel confident about the process. Feel confident about handling emotions. Feel confident about empathizing and using reflection. Feel confident about asking questions. Feel confident about summarizing. Review case information. Refer to the demonstration mediation for this exercise. Identify activators, biases. Identify activators. Share some of your activators. Review the case to see if there's anything about the scenario or the participants that might trigger or bias you. View. Is there any particular skill you would like to work on during this mediation? Summarizing, using silence, talking less, talking more, etc. Is there any particular way you might need help from your co-mediator? Areas where you're uncomfortable with the process, emotions, technique, etc. Mediation style. What is your usual conversation style? Directive versus non-directive. Talk a lot versus do not talk a lot. Ask a lot of questions versus don't ask a lot of questions. Solutions-oriented versus process-oriented. Tending to see things as right or wrong. Tending to see multiple perspectives. Refer to page during the mediation session. Opening, speaking to the mediator, speaking to each other, generating solutions, resolution statements, agreements, closing. Phase 1, open the mediation. Welcome disputants, establish a positive, trusting environment, explain your role and how the process works. Get agreement to the procedures, guidelines, and confidentiality. Identify other needs. Steps. Greet and welcome the participant. Seat them and thank them for agreeing to meet with you. Introduce yourself and ask disputants to introduce themselves. Briefly explain the process and your role. Process. You will first talk to us and tell us what happened. When we understand all the issues, we may ask you to speak directly to each other. If you make enough progress to start to discuss solutions, we will support you doing that. Mediator's role. We're here to help you discuss your concerns and listen to each other. We don't take sides or give advice. Any solutions will be up to you. Ask if they agree to use mediation. Explain confidently that everything said here is confidential except any threat to hurt yourself or someone else or child abuse. Ask them to agree. Tell them you may take notes and they will be torn up at the end of the mediation. Get agreement to the guidelines. Speak one at a time, no interrupting. Speak directly to us at first. Treat each other with respect. Refrain from name-calling or put-downs. Tips: what a mediator can think about or do. Establish a welcoming atmosphere by introducing or reintroducing yourself and having the parties introduce themselves and identify how they would like to be addressed. Offer refreshments, paper, pens, and directions to restroom facilities as appropriate. Explain to parties what they can expect from this session and emphasize confidentiality. Offer some initial guidelines or ground rules and ask parties what other agreements they need in the process to help facilitate the conversation. Remind parties of possible outcomes, confirm agreement about end time for this session and the possibility for additional sessions if appropriate. Mediation opening or quick reference guide. Introductions/opening statements. Clarify names, offer water, pencil, or paper, time 3 hours. We'll take at least one break, ask if you need more, location of the restroom, any special needs, voluntary process. Mediators are only here to facilitate the conversation. We do not make judgments or offer solutions. We just support the process and get everyone's needs on the table. Mediators' role to hear your perspectives to help you work it out. Process. Each party initially takes turns speaking directly to us and tells us their perspective. We will listen to each party one at a time. We ask the other party to wait their turn, and if you have comments or questions, you can write them down. We may ask questions to briefly clarify. After we hear both parties tell their perspective, which can take a while, we will ask you to face each other and speak directly to each other. If you make enough process through dialogue, we can help you make agreements. 1 month follow-up. Agreement, partial agreement, second session, non-binding agreement, not a legal document. If you want to make it legally binding, bless my soul. Okay. Not again. Okay. 1 month follow-up. Potential outcome. Agreement, partial agreement, second session. All right, I just said that. Guidelines. Speak respectfully. Oh, my Lord. Okay. How embarrassing. All right. Speak respectfully. Only one person speaks at a time. Refrain from interrupting. Make sure everyone agrees. Are there any other guidelines to participate? Confidentiality. Should a read agreement sent out in mail? Legal information discussed in mediation cannot be used in court. Ethical. Do not talk in the community, workplace, or family about the mediation. Any notes we take will destroy after the meeting. Everyone needs to agree and sign. Script of an opening statement. Welcome, my name is blank. How are you doing? Please have a seat. Get settled in. Is there anything else you need to be comfortable? Before we start, let me know how you would like to be addressed here in the session. We commend you for being here today and deciding, and we want to remind you that this is a voluntary process. We have asked you to reserve 3 hours for today's proceedings, and we want to verify your commitment to this time span. Can you stay here until blank blank blank? The restrooms are located blank, and you're welcome to the refreshments and snacks here for your use. We also have paper and pencils for you to use to take notes. We will plan to break somewhere around the middle of the session. If you wish for any additional breaks anytime during the process, please feel free to ask. We would also like that you turn off any cell phones and electronic devices at this time so you can be present for the process. As has been shared with you in preparing for this mediation session, our role is to help facilitate the conversation and to help get everyone's needs on the table. It is not our role here to be judges or arbitrators or to prove that anyone is right or wrong. This is your mediation, and we will help you work together so that you may reach a mutual agreeable solution. For this mediation process, we will follow a simple procedure. We will start by asking each of you in turn to tell us about the situation so that we can all better and understand your concerns, and we will ask you to speak directly to us. At some point, you will have an opportunity to talk directly with each other about the issues identified and needs, and we will help facilitate that conversation. If you make enough progress and are ready, we will help you work together to generate possible solutions that deal with each issue that concerns you, working toward making a resolution statement or agreement that can be satisfactory for all. Potential outcomes. As shared with you previously, there are many possible outcomes for this session. You may reach a full resolution of the issues and concerns that brought you here today, which we can write up in an agreement. You may come to partial resolution of the issues and concerns we will address. You may not reach resolution, but still have a better idea of the other's perspectives and what issues are moving forward. You may make substantial progress but need more time or information and can schedule future meetings to work toward resolution. We will check in about 30 minutes before we are scheduled to end today to see where we are and how to decide to move forward. Guidelines and confidentiality. For this mediation process to work, we need your agreement to some guidelines. We must agree to treat each other with respect. Do not interrupt. Even if you disagree or don't like what is being said, you all have an equal opportunity to speak. We only want one person to speak at a time, as it is impossible for us to listen when folks are talking at the same time. Paper and pencil are provided for you to use to take notes. What it is said in this room is confidential. The mediators will not talk to others, and we hope that you will be discreet in how you speak of today's proceedings with others. Mediators are committing to you the information you share will be kept confidential and cannot be used against you as evidence later in court or other adjudicative processes. Are there any other guidelines or ground rules you need to make this process work better for you? Will you follow the agreements to work together? Closing. Does anyone have any questions about the mediation process? If there are no further questions, let us begin. Agreement to mediate. Participation in mediation is voluntary. A panel of 2 to 3 neutral trained mediators will be assisting you in resolving your dispute. In this session, each person will have an opportunity to fully share their perspective. Then the panel will help facilitate a discussion between disputing parties to explore new understandings and possible options for resolution. Length of mediation. Sessions usually take 2 to 3 hours. Please allow for the maximum time. If you have a time restriction, please let us know prior to the mediation. Additional sessions can be scheduled if the parties feel they are making progress but need more time. Commitment. It is extremely important you attend the mediation session as scheduled and cancel only in an emergency. Your decision to use this affects many people. We coordinate the schedule of all parties involved and at least 3 mediators and arrange the meeting space. Who may attend? If you want to bring someone involved in the dispute to participate or observe, please let us know in advance, as well as we need the consent of the other party or parties. You're represented by a lawyer in this dispute to be mediated. They may attend the session if all parties consent. The level of attorney participation will be decided on a case-by-case basis. Mediation fees. There is a sliding scale administrative charge per party per session for our service. If a fee is charged and an invoice is enclosed, this fee can be reduced or waived at the request of the client. In addition, we hope you make a donation, blah, blah, blah. Resolution. A mediated resolution may be oral or written. Although SEES does not legally draft binding agreements, you may want to have your resolution statement redrafted outside the mediation process so it can be enforced in a court of law. Fairness. Our mediators can end the session at any time if they feel you do not have enough information about your rights and obligations to make an agreement. Confidentiality. Information obtained through case development in a mediated session is confidential and is not admissible in a court of law, whether or not parties sign this form. I acknowledge having read the information outline, agree to the process. All right. Mediation confidentiality statement. One of the primary requirements of successfully exploring and resolving conflicts through mediation is establishing a dialogue between people in conflict that allows for an open and honest exchange of perspectives, ideas, and options. In recognition of the need to foster an environment where people can speak and share information in a mediation session without fear that their words will be used against them later, the state of California has enacted laws that address issues of confidentiality in mediation. While confidentiality is rarely a point of contention in a mediation, we have established a sort of policies regarding mediation confidentiality, which both conform to state law and enhance our ability to create a safe place where people can effectively work to resolve their disputes. California statutes and SEED policies on confidentiality require any statement made or information obtained solely and directly through a community mediation is confidential and cannot be submitted as evidence in a court of law, administrative hearing, or other legal proceeding unless agreed to by all parties. This applies in all civil cases, but not in criminal matters. Confidentiality is extended to all documents related to mediation, beginning from the time that a person first makes contact with SEEDs and up to including any written resolution reached by the parties. Mediators or other staff and volunteers cannot be required to and will not testify in a legal proceeding on matters pertaining to mediation. Mediators will not discuss with anyone outside the organization the specific details of mediation without written permission of all participants. It also encourages but cannot require the parties in dispute to not discuss specific details in the mediation with others outside the mediation unless agreed to by all parties. Any resolution made in a SEED's mediation is not admissible or enforceable in a subsequent legal proceeding unless parties specifically write into the resolution statement outside of the mediation process that they wish to make their resolution binding and enforceable. Written statements containing such language to them that are no longer confidential and may be used as evidence. Such cases, all other parts of the mediation process leading up to resolution remain confidential. SEEDs may be required by law to report incidents of threat or child abuse, including physical or mental abuse and neglect, threats of suicide, threats of violence, or any other situation where people may suffer imminent physical harm. Phase 2, speaking to the mediators. Objectives: build trust and develop rapport with parties, identify issues, de-escalate enough to get them to talk to each other, model effective communication, assist each party to identify interests and needs, communicate who speaks first. This should have been decided in the pre-briefing. Ask the first person to share their story. Use ears. Ask the second person to share their story. Use ears. Ask each person open-ended question to help you understand the situation or problem. Remember to use ears. List issues, concerns, needs, what needs to be resolved, areas of agreement, common ground. Tips. You may want to have each participant provide a 5-minute long opening statement to share their perspective on the situation before delving deeper. Determination of who goes first can be made in different ways. Make a suggestion based on your assessment of the case. Allow the parties to decide. Default the person who initiated the mediation process. Have the participants share their stories by directing concerns, comments, and questions directly to you as the mediators at this stage. Acknowledge possible outcomes, solutions that are offered by participants at this point, but avoid jumping to problem solving until more information is gathered and shared. Keep time spent with each party balanced as much as possible. Acknowledge and thank participants for their patience when the focus has been on the other person for an extended time. Check in. Before moving on to the next step, check in with yourself, your co-mediators, and the parties to see if there is more to say, questions to ask, or points to clarify. Questions to use while mediating, ways to keep it going. Can you tell me more about? It seems like, can you tell me more about that? Is there anything more that's important for me to understand? What do you want most for me to know, to acknowledge? Feelings, empathizing. Can you tell me how you felt about that? Can you tell me more about how you felt about blank? It seemed to me that you might have felt blank. Am I wrong about that? What was it about blank that made you feel blank? Interests, motivations, assumptions, in a neutral, curious, not accusatory tone. What was it that made you feel like you had to blank? Can you tell me what was the most important thing to you about blank? What were some other things that were important? Can you tell me what your expectations were? What were your expectations of me? What were your expectations of yourself? What happened about the expectations and how things turned out? Interest towards problem solving. What do you need most? What would it mean to you to get that? What is important to you about blank? Why is blank important to you? You said you needed blank. Tell me about what that would look like. How would we do it differently in the future? How would we blank? How would you know that you had gotten what you need? Summary. Repeat back to the speaker what you heard them say, including what the speaker was feeling if you identified feelings, and what the speaker says they need. So, when I blank, describe the action identified. If you blank, name the feeling identified. If you are unsure about the feeling, ask. And I think you are feeling, check me out if I am wrong about it. You are feeling blank. And what you want now is blank. Did I get that right? Did I leave anything out? Objectives. Facilitate their discussion by helping disputants talk to one another. Help disputants understand each other's point of view, how the other experiences the situation. Identify any areas of common ground. Summarize any new areas of understanding. Keep them moving forward. Point out progress, new understandings. Ask disputants to face and talk to each other when appropriate. Identify a statement or issue or concern to begin dialogue. Ask one person to begin the conversation by responding to a prompt posed by the mediator. Remind them to speak directly to the other person. For example, when mediator says to Casey, Casey, tell Q what you thought or felt when you did not get your things back in the same condition, and please speak directly to Q. Ask disputants to restate each other. Looping. Keep things balanced. Summarize progress and new understandings. Tips. When should they start to talk to each other? To assess readiness, look for body language, nodding, saying thank you. Relax body language, not repeating themselves. Tone. Conversation. Are they listening to what the other party is saying? Are they starting to talk to each other? Issues. Is everything on the table even if they aren't agreeing? Timing. Are we more than halfway? How to start the dialogue. Organically, when people naturally start talking to each other in a positive way. Kind statement. When a person says a kind statement about the other. Important statement. When you ask one party to repeat something that seemed important to the other party. Mediators select a topic. When selecting an issue to start a dialogue, you may consider proposing a topic that might foster a better understanding of their differences or their possible shared values. Proposing what seems like an easier issue to resolve to help build confidence and trust. Proposing an issue that seems hottest for both. Ask one person to summarize the other person's point of view. Ask if there's anything else you would like the other person to understand. Ask the parties where they want to start. Looping. Encourage one party to understand the point of view of the other person. You can ask one party to repeat what the other party stated. Check in with the first party to see if that was correct or if anything is missing. Give the party who looped a chance to add a response. Ask the first party to repeat back their response. Keep the looping balanced so that both parties are looping the other. Remember to continue balancing airtime for parties as much as possible. When the parties are communicating well, step back and allow them to do their work. Using the party's own language, highlight points of similarity, shared values, common needs, and interests. If you feel that the parties are making progress, check in with them, ask questions, giving them opportunity to conform positive movement. Before moving on to the next step, check in with yourself. Your co-meet, brainstorm ideas, narrow down ideas, start to craft the language, and develop specific solutions. No idea is bad. Do not prejudge or evaluate at this time. Be as creative as possible and think outside the box. Entertain possibilities that have not been previously considered. Have fun with it. Record these generated solutions on charts or paper as the parties offer them. Remind the parties that the opportunity to evaluate will follow if they start judging or find fault with a suggestion. After an exhaustive list is generating, ask the party or unlink specific solutions that meet specific needs to come to an overall solution. Be mindful of whether solutions being offered are qualitatively balanced, whether each party needs or interests are being met. Make sure one party does not feel unfairly burdened. Explore how previously suggested and rejected solutions can be changed to become more acceptable. If there seems to be an impasse, ask parties to consider what their likely alternatives are to not reach an agreement. If the parties have begun identifying workable solutions, capture those, summarize them as appropriate, work towards specificity, and developing concrete ways to measure success. Avoid blaming, shaming. Stay away from should have, could have, would have. Focus on the future. What needs to be done to address the problem now? What can be done to keep the conflict from occurring? Avoid vague suggestions such as be more respectful or have better communication. Don't offer solutions. All right, and that's all for now. But yes, very excited about this book, and I hope to create a project that will help people integrate these ideas into their own life. Bye-bye.